Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Traci Stein. As always, I'm so happy to be here with you today. Today's episode is about a tool that you have innately within you, and Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison and all kinds of other people from the well-known to the everyday use all of the time, even if they think they don't, and it's called self-hypnosis. Now, today I'll talk about what self-hypnosis is, who can benefit, what it feels like, how you do it, and why you should do it. And I'm also going to go over, of course, something I've touched on before, these everyday trance states that you're creating all of the time, often without knowing it, and why it's really much better for you to be conscious of what your inner script is doing to the movie in your mind and how it's directing your life. Because once you know, you can harness any tool for the better. So without further ado, let's get on to the episode. For anybody watching on YouTube, this is an audio-only episode because honestly, I got up before 6 a.m. and I was like, I really need to finally get this self-hypnosis episode out. So I am not looking my personal best, but you can imagine me however you wish. Hopefully well-groomed and showered and presentable. And that's a good segue, actually, to talking about hypnosis, because by definition, hypnosis is a state of enhanced absorption in something and focus on something and attention to something specific, with decreased attention to absorption in and focus on everything else. And it's something, again, you move in and out of all the time. Now, everybody doesn't have equal ability to use hypnosis. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I really wanted to bring this up because there's so much misunderstanding about what hypnosis is and isn't. You're not going to bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken if you undergo hypnosis unless you actually want to. So keep that in mind. Because again, so much misinformation out there about hypnosis. Now, hypnosis is something that not everyone can utilize equally, but as I have mentioned many times in many episodes and in talks I've given and things I've written, it's a state that I think pretty much everyone goes in and out of multiple times a day without realizing it. We are wired to enter into different brainwave states, different states of awareness. And that's a really good thing. It's not so good if you're not aware of it, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But 2/3 of the population probably has at least a moderate ability to make good use of hypnosis. And I want you to think about this as an ability, an aptitude, because what happens is a lot of people think of hypnosis as something for the weak-minded or people who aren't that bright. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's very adaptive to be able to do this. Now, a segment of the population, maybe 15%, 10, 15% or so, the research varies depending on which paper you read, but a smaller subset of the population has an ability to go very deeply into hypnosis. They're called high hypnotizables. I'm one of them. And if that's you, you are more trance prone and you'll go into trance more deeply. So if you're working with a professional or listening to something on an audio program in the format of your choosing, you'll notice that you may have periods where you don't hear anything at all. It feels like you're in a deep sleep. But when someone gives you the suggestions to come back to the present moment and normal waking awareness and feel refreshed and alert, you actually will hear those suggestions and do just that. There is a subset of the population that might be, again, between 5 and 15% that is considered low hypnotizable. And what that means is maybe you're not going to get much, if anything, out of hypnosis when you do it with a professional, or you might find it harder to shift your awareness from one state to another. But it's not really clear whether people even in that group can't benefit to some extent. But basically, if you're somebody who tends to feel like you're not particularly creative or daydreamy, you don't find yourself getting immersed in books or movies that easily, you may find that if you have an issue you're seeking treatment for, hopefully from a licensed, well-trained professional, that they will use other things that will work better for you, other techniques, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy or mindfulness or something else. Hypnosis generally is a tool. If you go to a clinician's office, they should be able to treat you for whatever problem you're seeking help for, even if they didn't use hypnosis. That's kind of the golden rule. So it is a tool. Somebody who's doing clinical hypnosis with you should be able to meet with you, understand what's going on for you, what is not going well, what you would like to change, what you would like to create. And then together, you will partner so that you can more easily and skillfully and repeatably enter into a hypnotic state so that you may, in fact, experience a more rapid kind of transformation. So I want to tell you, before I go too much further, what hypnosis is useful for. It is useful for things like speeding wound healing in some studies, helping bones heal that much more rapidly. There is some research to suggest that that's possible. That's the work of Carol Janandis at Harvard. But there's a lot of research on hypnosis. I like to think of any of these tools, hypnosis included, as tools in your toolbox. It doesn't mean if you break a leg, you don't go to the emergency room. You absolutely should. But hypnosis can be useful for easing pain, turning down the volume on pain, making it less intense, making your body feel more comfortable, helping you to feel less freaked out about pain. It can help you to perform better, feel more confident. Mental rehearsal is a type of self-hypnotic technique. Self-hypnosis can help with chemotherapy-induced nausea. It can help you to get rid of or greatly reduce that fear of public speaking, something that I had a ton of. And let me tell you, I never thought I would be having a podcast, at least not voluntarily. It works. Hypnosis can help with turning down the volume on habits that you would consider bad for you. Smoking, overeating, things like that. And again, they don't need to be used exclusively. Sometimes they are. Hypnosis can work very rapidly for some people. I have had people come in and have a 3-pack a day, 40-plus year smoking habit, sometimes 50-year smoking habit, and stop smoking. Largely after the first session, sometimes it only takes a few. I've had someone come in and have horrible tinnitus, that ear ringing, that was really taking away from their quality of life. And within a few sessions, they were able to run without headphones for the first time in a decade. So even things that have what we would think of as a very physiologically based origin, like tinnitus, we can change how our brain experiences them, and that can improve our quality of life. Now, the reason I want to talk about self-hypnosis today is because we're always creating movies in our mind. And most everyone, I can't think of anyone who doesn't have this. We have a script that we live our lives by. And that script is generated by all kinds of things. Maybe partly our wiring, right? I mean, we have a body, we have a brain, we have a physiology, we have genetics, we have things that run in our families in terms of how we're wired, right? We have all kinds of other things, though, that shape our experience of ourselves and the world. So you might have someone in your life who you think of as someone who's got it all, that you can't think of anything that isn't great about them, but they cannot find the right partner ever. They keep finding person after person who treats them like they don't matter. And I would guarantee you there's some unconscious script, some everyday trance, lifelong trance that is shaping what they think they deserve. And when we have something like that, I know I've used that example before, but it's really common. And it can lead us to choose people who operate according to that trance, that script. They won't treat us well. Not good. We can, again, have a fear of public speaking. We can over-rely on substances. We can, sabotage progress at work. We want something so bad, and then we tank it somehow again and again because we don't think we deserve it. Tara Brach, famous person talking about meditation and compassion, trance of unworthiness. I don't think she's the first person to coin that phrase, but so many of us have it. That's a trance. Whether or not she intended it to be like that, it literally is a hypnotic trance state. And I'm going to say something that some people will say, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way, or how can that be? But a lot of people who are dealing with tremendous anxiety, where they themselves in a calmer moment would say, yeah, there's not an objective reason for me thinking this or feeling this way or avoiding this situation. I understand that it's not rational, and I am terrified of doing something. I've had people come to me because they're afraid of driving over a bridge, driving out of their parking space. That is a trance state. Even people who've never been in an accident, but certainly people who have, right? It can be an early experience that shapes how we view what is safe or not safe for us, possible or not possible. And we can have these erroneous beliefs, these unhelpful scripts, to put it really mildly, even if there's not evidence that they're likely. If you're afraid of public speaking and you've given 100 talks that have been really great and 50 even that were, okay, maybe they're so-so or mediocre, you still don't have any evidence that if you go and give a talk, someone's going to throw tomatoes at you or say that it was the worst talk I've ever experienced. Or beneath that, and this is really the key thing, that, you're terrible and you should never do this again, right? Because, everybody has bad days. Everybody has things that don't go as well. Conversely, there are lots of people out there that have a trance of, I can do it. And they may not be the smartest or most attractive or most skilled people you know, and yet they believe in themselves to a point that they make things happen that, you might be scratching your head. There are plenty of celebrities who talk about that, where they came from very modest upbringings or no one thought they would amount to anything and so forth. But a part of them said, I can see myself doing this thing and being super duper successful, and they make it happen. That's more than just hard work. And I think that's more than just luck. So that's self-hypnosis. The everyday trances I've referred to before are those super inner focus states where you're so immersed in the movie in your mind that you don't hear somebody calling your name. Teenagers have that a lot, but lots of people do. It might be you're reading a book and the character seems so vivid and alive to you that when someone describes the smell of somebody's perfume, you smell it. Or you hear the voice of the character and their Brooklyn accent. Or you see the beautiful colors of the sari somebody is wearing to a wedding, or you are tasting the dish that a chef is creating and you're tasting it vividly. And in fact, maybe your mouth waters because you're like, oh my God, I can almost taste it. Well, a part of your brain is tasting the food that you're reading about, or hearing the person's voice, or feeling the warmth of a hug from a loved one, right? When we remember things vividly, we are in a trance state. If you just went to your grandma's birthday party and she had lemon cake with vanilla buttercream icing, and whether you liked it or didn't, you can relive to some extent tasting that lemon cake with vanilla buttercream icing. You can smell someone's perfume. You can feel the sun on your skin. You can be swimming in the ocean. Your mind can take you almost anywhere, and that's a really good thing. So in a few moments, I'll get into how you harness that. I want to talk about the negative side a little bit more, though. We all go in and out of trance states. There are those larger ones. You know, a cognitive behavioral therapist would say a core belief like, I'm not worthy, so I'm going to keep attracting people who treat me as if I'm not. But negative trance states can be things that affect our bodies. So there is some research from a few years ago now on pain. And we know that hypnosis can turn down the volume and intensity on pain. I mentioned that a little while ago. And if you're interested in reading the research on that, Mark Jensen at the University of Washington has been looking into this for years. Lots of other people as well. But there is some evidence that you can hypnotically induce pain in bodies that feel no pain otherwise. And the reason that's important is because if we're not aware of the trances that are directing our lives and shaping our scripts and creating these movies, we can create incredible discomfort in our bodies, in our emotions. We can inhibit ourselves from doing things that would make us really happy, and so forth. But with the right trance state, you can run a marathon even if last year you hadn't even run a mile. That happens a lot. And in fact, things like running tend to facilitate trance states. Maybe we'll talk about that. Anything rhythmic, repetitive, that's why people get these driving trances. The lines on the road are appearing to come at the car very regularly, and you can be lost in thought to the point that you get home and you're like, how the heck did I get home? Right? If a deer ran in front of the car, hopefully, most likely, you would notice that, snap out of the trance, slam on the brakes. Because your brain is wired to do that. So we've gone over what trance is. We've gone over some of the positive and negative things associated with hypnotic trances. We've talked a little bit about self-hypnosis and hypnosis with a clinician. Self-hypnosis is not only the trances that happen to you kind of inadvertently, they just happen, you go through them, like I mentioned, the driving trance and the jogging trance and so forth. If you're creating art, painting, drawing, sculpting, writing, you'll recognize that trancey state. But self-hypnosis that you do deliberately is learning to move yourself very volitionally, on purpose, back into a trance state. And you're doing it because you've decided you want something to be different. You want less of something and more of something else. And you use techniques that are quite simple. The more you use them, the better you get at them, because hypnosis is like strengthening a muscle. And you change the way your life starts to unfold. It's not magic, but it can feel like that. Maybe let's talk about how it feels. So you know about the absorption and the focus. You know that you get into trance states more likely when you're lost in a book or a movie or driving or doing other activities where the focus is so much on that everything else fades off into the into the distance. Most trance states feel kind of like daydreaming. It's the same type of brainwave state, that alpha brainwave state. So you're not focused on doing a math problem or paying rapt attention to something at work or a task you're doing. You're allowing your gaze to move inward. The movie in your mind becomes more vivid. And you can enter these kind of states with simple techniques like breathing, focusing on your breathing with the intention to relax, with the intention to go within. You can do these things by listening to music or binaural beats. So some of you know I have recorded a few albums now with HemiSync. HemiSync stands for hemispheric synchronization. And basically it's a type of brainwave entrainment. But if you find that it's harder for you to focus on your inner world on your own, you can use something like a binaural beat audio program, that sort of technology. There are free and low-cost apps. There are companies like HemiSync that have been doing this since, I think, the 1950s. So they've really done a great job at honing this skill and this technique. And that can help you get into that more trance-receptive state. Counting backwards, moving into imagery that you have created or that a professional is doing with you, or listening to an audio program. And you know that I have many audio programs out there now. Most of them are with Hay House, a few are with HemiSync. I have some on my website, but there are lots of other ones out there. You don't have to use mine. And in fact, you can find guided imagery scripts, hypnotic scripts that you can read out loud into your phone and listen to. Your own voice sometimes can be especially powerful at helping you get to where you want to go. So the techniques are simple. Personally, journaling can be really helpful. And I'll tell you why. Journaling's helpful for many things. It's one of the best free things you can do for yourself, honestly. But journaling is great because it can help you to know what you want to change, what you want less of, what you want to let go of, what you're ready to release for good. That's totally up to you. And then you can write out the journey or the story of how you would like things to go as if they are happening right now. And in fact, that's why with manifesting and manifestation courses, people will tell you to step into the experience of what you want to happen and feel it, see it, hear it, wade into it as if it's true now. I mean, do I think there's a potentially mystical component to that? I actually do. And I've seen it work. That's a whole other episode. But it's an established hypnotic technique for shifting your awareness into the can-do mode. So, I don't want to belabor this, but what I want to emphasize is that you can actually do it. This is something that even if you started out with a professional, you can leave with techniques that you can use on your own to strengthen that muscle, that self-hypnotic muscle, and start doing more and feeling more of what you want. I didn't even get through the tip of the iceberg on what hypnosis can do. And you really have almost, kind of nothing to lose. For people who've read books like Think and Grow Rich, famous book by Napoleon Hill, who talked a lot about auto-suggestion, he was talking about self-hypnosis. And in the updated version of the book, there's more in there that's phrased more for a modern day mind. There are more contemporary examples. But it's something people have been doing forever and ever, even if they weren't calling it auto-suggestion, self-hypnosis, and so forth. But when you see public figures talking about their journeys from, humble beginnings to, incredible success as they define it. That has to be an element of it, whether they're formally sitting and saying this is self-hypnosis or whether they have just mentally rehearsed again and again the outcome that they want. Athletes do it. Successful business people do it. People who have overcome a lot of the physical challenges they're dealing with or have learned to manage them better. That's a part of it. And there's no reason it can't be a part of it for you as well. So if you found this helpful, let me know. Leave me a comment on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. I can put the information in the show notes. If you sign up for my email list, you can actually email me. I don't like giving out my email, but if you sign up for my email list on my website, absolutely, you can let me know by email what workshops you would like to see, or audio content, video content. Do you want to hear more about self-hypnosis for something specific? Because I'd love to go over that with you. It's one of the tools that I use the most because I find it the most effective for myself, for others. So let me know what you think. I do this for you. I do this for me. I really enjoy doing it, but I really want it to be helpful for you. So that's that. If you've enjoyed the show, please do remember to like, share, and follow. It really helps me continue bringing good content to you. And as always, until next time, be well.